so glad to have you here. I'm excited to be sharing with you the shocking secrets of financial psychology. We're going to reveal them to you here. I'm glad you're here with me. I have a list of questions here that I've gotten over time. Some of these are frequently asked questions. And since I am a financial psychologist, I figured I should come on live and answer some of these questions I've already received. If you're watching this, if you're joining me live, feel free to put a question in the chat. Ask me anything you want related to psychology and money. Why do we do what we do when it comes to money? A lot of the research I have done personally has been looking at mindsets. So I grew up lower income, and I knew even as a child that it was better to be higher income for a multitude of reasons. And I got really interested in how do people who are hardworking, these are sort of the basic things, right? Intelligent, hardworking, these are great things. How do so many people who are intelligent and hardworking, how do so many of them stay stuck in their socioeconomic environment in which they were born? We can't help whether we were born rich or whether we were born poor. We can't help it. But what is the difference between people who are growing up poor? This is what I became sort of obsessed with in my research and in my sciences. How do people who grow up poor, how do they change their life? What are the mindsets? What are the habits? What can we learn? Not just from case studies on people who have done this, and those are great. But what can we learn from a larger body of knowledge? And so for my research, for example, I've certainly worked with many individuals over time, couples and families, doing one-on-one consultations. But I was also curious around if we get data sets of thousands of people. And at this point, the Money Scripts test that I've used in research, which you can take yourself if you want, just go to moneyscripts.com. We have given that to over, I'd say, close to 100,000 people now have taken that test. And so what a rich data set. And what we've done then is looked at patterns between beliefs around money and how they're associated with socioeconomic class, so things like net worth and income. Because ultimately what I want to do is find the mindsets of the ultra wealthy and share it with as many people as possible who want to climb the socioeconomic ladder themselves. So that has really been the thrust of my research in the area of financial psychology. What can we learn about the psychology of wealth, the psychology of people who climb the socioeconomic ladder? What can we learn about that psychology that I could teach myself, that I could teach others, that I can teach you? That has been the thrust of my research. So if you have any questions for me about financial psychology, how do people go from poor to rich? How do people go from rich to poor? This is all very important stuff to know. And I have a list of questions here, but if while we're live here, if you have any questions, throw them in the comments and I'll read them live. And I appreciate you being here. So the first one I got is, how do feelings impact how people use their money? Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is that the average American is a terrible absolutely terrible financial shape. We know what we should be doing when it comes to money, but we don't do it. We don't do it. So we know what we should be doing, but we don't do it. We know that we should save for the future. We know that we should invest for the future. We know we should be doing these things. So why is it we don't really do it? Well, it really comes down to our emotional experience around money. It comes down to the fact that our brain is wired to do it all wrong. So we just need to look at the emotional part of the brain, the amygdala. We are wired to make financial decisions in emotional states. This is why advertisers are so good at selling you stuff, because they know that if they can trigger your psychology, if they can trigger your desire to feel like you're important, if they can trigger your desire to elicit an emotional response in you so that you'll spend more money. This is how they become wealthy. And if you watch commercials and put the hat of a psychologist on and really think about what's the message they're trying to show you here. And I think like beer commercials were always sort of the classic So they're trying to sell beer. And so what do they do? Well, they want to connect you to feeling like, and I'll just talk about heterosexual men for now. What they want you to do is feel like when you have this beer, oh, women are gonna love you. You know, when you have this beer, your friend. It's a way to connect with your friends. It's a way to really enjoy sports. What they're really trying to sell here is obviously on a real deep level. You know, that sense of sexuality, that desire to have to be interesting to members of the opposite sex, that desire to have high status within your social group of other males, and it also gives you the feeling that you're missing out. You know, if you don't have and you're watching TV probably alone, so they already know this. So how does money affect how we use money, or how does emotions affect how we use money? It's how it determines everything we do with money. So it determines our spending habits. So many of us are drawn to high status items, to luxury items, to a fancy watch, or maybe I should get a really nice car, show it off. We're doing all that because of our emotional brain, because we want to feel like we belong to the tribe, however you define that tribe. We want to feel like people respect us, our status within that tribe. So our decisions around money are primarily made from an emotional stance. That's why we're so terrible with money. Okay, so let's see here. Next question. How does the way we grew up around money, how does the way that we grew up influence how we think about money? And can you give examples on that? So yeah, how you grew up essentially determines the majority of your financial behaviors. So first of all, we're wired to do it all wrong when it comes to things like investing. So that's the average person is terrible at investing. They lose their money. They buy high. They sell low. That's the average person. So we destroy ourselves. But how you specifically grew up has even a bigger impact, I think. And when I say how you grew up, I'm saying what your mom taught you about money, what your dad taught you about money, the socioeconomic status of your neighborhood, the people around you, your relatives. That really determines our beliefs around money, and it determines all of our financial behaviors. So that's really, really driving our financial behaviors. So for example, let's say that you grew up poor. Common experience for many people growing up poor. You're going to have certain beliefs around how money works. You may have a belief such as there'll never be enough money. There'll never be enough money. That is your lived experience if you grew up poor. That is your lived experience. And so if you have the experience and the of not having enough money, you're going to have this belief there'll never be enough money. Now, what would that do? It does one of two things, usually. It can lead to a behavior where you become an Ebenezer Scrooge type person. So there's never going to be enough money. So, oh my gosh, so you're anxious about money. So I'm going to save every penny I get. I'm going to become a miser. I'm not going to spend a dime on anything because there's never going to be enough money. Now, interestingly, a lot of people who go from rags to riches have this belief. They believe there's never going to be enough money. They have a history of growing up in poverty. And what they've made a decision to themselves at a very early age, quite often, I am not going to be broke. I am not going to be poor. That is not going to be me. I am not going to raise my children in that same type of an experience. And so what do? Well, every dollar they get, they want to save it. They want to invest it. So it's actually a great driver for creating wealth. This mindset that there'll never be enough money. Now, the downside is you have an approach to money where you have the belief there's never enough money. And so why would I even bother trying? So that's the decision you make for yourself. There'll never be enough money, so why bother trying? Why should I bother trying to get a better job? It doesn't matter. There's never going to be enough money. If I all of a sudden have some money, I get a paycheck, I have $2,000, I might as well blow it because there's never going to be enough money anyway. I might as well spend it while I got it. Have you ever heard that? Spend it while you got it? That is that poor mindset belief coming from a poverty experience, believing that there'll never be enough money, so you might as well spend it. So how we grew up around money influences all of our financial behaviors. Your socioeconomic status, the class in which you were born, quite often determines what's going to happen next. For example, people who grow up wealthy might have this belief that there'll always be enough money. And in other words, they have a bit of an abundance mindset. And so if they get a job that's low paying, they're like, something's not right here. I need to get a higher paying job because there's more than enough money. So they may be compelled to be
searching for a better job, searching for ways to make more money. The downside to that belief can be that they think, oh, there'll always be enough money. They grew up rich. And so they finally go out on their own and then they blow all their money because they're not making enough money. So these beliefs we have about money, we call them money scripts. And they drive all of our financial behavior. So in our studies, your beliefs around money predict your income, your net worth, your credit card behaviors. We can link them to your socioeconomic status growing up, all sorts of things. So how you grew up around money influences your financial behaviors. And I gave you an example there, which was part of the question of a rich person and a poor person. Okay, so another question here. How do I handle being so scared about money and money decisions? What can I do to feel better? So how do I handle feeling so scared about money and money decisions? I'm going to ask you to think about, if you have a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety around money, just think about where that came from. Quite often there's a really good reason why you feel that way. Perhaps you were taught as a child that money's a scary thing. Perhaps you saw your parents fight about money. So you may be thinking, I don't want to talk to anyone about money because it's a scary topic. So if you have a lot of fear around money, I guarantee you there's a very good reason for it. Look into your childhood. And if you can't find anything that would help explain why you're so scared about money, then you need to dig a little deeper. Look into your parents' childhood. Yes, ask your parents questions about money and what it was like for them growing up around money. And if you're lucky enough to have grandparents who are alive, ask your grandparents about their experiences around money. So when I did this personally, I was trying to figure out my own psychology around money when I got really interested in it. And really what got me interested in it is that I lost a bunch of money day trading when I got out of college. When I got my doctorate in clinical psychology, I saw a buddy make $100,000, trading stocks, day trading. And I thought, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. I sold what little I had of value and I started to trade with it. My goal was to take my 10 grand, make it into 100 grand in a year, and then pay off my student loans. And I learned the hard way that that's a terrible way to make money, and it's a great way to lose all your money. And that's exactly what happened. I started to lose my money. The tech bubble burst. It was terrible timing. Well, it was good timing for me because it really did start me off on this career to ask the question, why do reasonably intelligent people do things that are so dumb with their money? I was trying to figure out for myself. What I did is I went home and I interviewed my mother. I interviewed my father. I asked them questions. What was it like for you growing up around money? I interviewed my mom, who told me stories about my grandpa. And so one of the reasons that I learned that I was so scared about money and my mom was so anxious about money is the experience my grandfather had. So when he was a young man, when he was in his 20s, went to the bank one day and all the money was gone. It was the Great Depression. Banks collapsed. So the money he had in the bank was all gone. And so as a young man, what he learned, it's a logical conclusion, right? You can't trust banks with your money. You can't trust financial institutions with your money. And my understanding is he never put $1 in the bank the rest of his life, which is not a great way to grow wealth, but it certainly is a great way to make sure that the bank's not going to steal all your money or it's not going to all disappear. And so when I realized that part of my fear around money which I inherited from my mother was linked back to my grandfather's story, it really started to shed some light in the power to me of the power of psychology around money. Here is an event that happened 2 generations ago. I hadn't even heard of the story, but it was impacting me. Isn't that crazy? But it makes sense. That's how all psychology works, right? Many of us are playing out patterns in our lives that we learned directly from our parents, and perhaps our parents were reacting to what our grandparents did. You see this pattern with, for example, alcoholism, where you have a grandparent, for example, who may be an alcoholic, and then your parents come along and they have a tendency to have an imbalanced relationship with alcohol themselves. They either drink too much themselves or they decide, like, I'm never going to drink at all, which is fine, but it's a bit of an extreme position around that. And then all of a sudden you're a kid and people have really strong feelings about alcohol. And so chances are you're going to have some strong feelings about it. These things happen throughout family systems, and the same thing is happening to us around money. We are living out scripts that have been quite often written for us by our parents, by our grandparents, and a lot of these stories we're not even aware of them. So part of what I would encourage you to do in being your own financial psychologist is to try to figure out why you have the beliefs you have, to try to figure out why you do what you do around money. And chances are you have inherited some of these directly from your mother, from your father, from perhaps your grandparents, from other influential adults. Perhaps you're living out a pattern of beliefs around money that is based on your religious background or based on in the community in which you grew up, in the socioeconomic community, or even down to the town or extended family. So many of our behaviors around money come from these influences that we have, and a lot of them happen to us when we're children, and we're not really wise enough to try to think through, why do I think the way I think around money? So that's my tip for you. If you're feeling scared around money, try to dig into your family history around money. Why do you think it's scary to begin with? Is this something that you learned directly from your own experience or something you learned from your parents or grandparents? Okay. What are some common issues people face when they're thinking about money, and how can they make it better? So this is kind of an interesting question, and you're talking about problems about people thinking around money. I immediately go to the research we've done on money scripts, and we found several categories of those. I'll review them really quickly right now. The first category is called money vigilance. Let's start with money avoidance. These are beliefs like rich people are greedy, money corrupts, you can't get rich without taking advantage of others. We call them money avoidance because they lead to a bunch of avoidant behaviors around money. Rich people are greedy, money corrupts. Very common beliefs if you grew up in a lower socioeconomic environment. Chances are you don't know any rich people, but you do see examples of rich people. And by the way, there are many examples all over the place of rich people doing terrible things. Perhaps you've had that direct experience yourself. Perhaps your parents or grandparents did. As with all these money beliefs, though, it's only part of the story. There are rich people who do great things with their money. As a matter of fact, my hope for you is that you become filthy rich. Isn't that an interesting adjective for the rich, right? Filthy rich, stinking rich. I hope you become extremely wealthy, and I hope you do great things in the world. Isn't that what we need? Don't we need people who are conscientious, people who have good ethics? Don't we want them to have the money? Because they can do great things in the world. So money avoidance is one. The second category we called money worship. This is where we put money on a pedestal. We think it's going to solve all our problems. It's going to make us happy. All our problems will melt away if we just had more money. This often gets connected to people who overspend too. If I can just get that next shiny toy, that beautiful Rolex watch, if I can just lease that Mercedes, people see me driving around it, then I'll be happy, right? Then I'll be happy. Wrong. Money will not solve your existential problems. It will not give you love. It will not give you peace. It will not give you a lack of anxiety overall. It's just not a magic cure. And what I find often, and I work with a lot of ultra wealthy individuals, and they struggle with a lot of the same stuff. Now they don't struggle with how am I going to pay my rent, how am I going to pay for my car note, but they do struggle with why am I here on earth? Like, what's the point? They get depressed too. So money won't take away all your depression. It might make your life a little bit easier. But if you're focused on stuff, buying more stuff, it's a surefire way to be more miserable. And that's what studies show about materialism, is people have a tendency to be more depressed, more anxious, less satisfied in life when you're focused on stuff. The third category we found is we called money status. It's the keeping up with the Joneses stuff. It's the people who are flashing stuff on social media. They want you to see them as being important. These are people who typically grew up poor, more likely, and they want to show the world they made it. It's associated with terrible financial outcomes too, because you're spending all your money. The only way to become wealthy is to not spend your money, is to invest it, and that's how you become wealthy. Spending all your money just keeps you broke. The fourth category is we found what we called money vigilance. This is people who are vigilant around money. They save for the future. They kind of actually downplay how much money they have, and they're not focused on buying a bunch of crap. And they, of course, have much better financial outcomes, and they tend to be the richest people in at least America. We've done most of the studies. So ironically, they're not the ones showing off. They're the ones who are keeping it somewhat hidden. They're not flashy at all. And Dave Ramsey's done some research on this, so as well as the Millionaire Next Door, not just my research. And what we find is that most millionaires in the United States, they're self-made. They describe themselves as frugal. They are driving Toyotas and Hondas. They're not driving Mercedes and BMWs and Lamborghinis. That's not most millionaires. And if you have that spending mindset, you're going to end up broke. So problems around money, what are the common problems around thinking around money? Thinking around money is the primary problem. Everybody already knows what they should do, right? I mean, I'm a fan of financial literacy, but it's not going to solve all the problems. Everyone already knows what they should do. I've never met anyone who's having, financial problems, and the problem is they didn't know the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA. That's not where people are suffering. That's not actually what's happening. They're suffering because they have distorted beliefs, they have dysfunctional beliefs, they have self-sabotaging beliefs around money, and that's what's screwing them up. Okay, so let's go here. And by the way, in the chats, throw any questions that you have in there. If you're catching this after the live, throw them in there. I'll answer them in another video. In the meanwhile, I'm reading off questions that I've already gotten from people. Let's see here. Do what people think is success change how they spend money? Okay, do what people think is success, does that change how they spend money? I would say yes. So you have to be really careful about what your definition of success is. Think about it. Where did you get this definition of success? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you? And I'll tell you what it means to me. Success does have a monetary component. Like, I think that it's important to have a certain level of income so that you can, pay your rent, so that you can put your kids in a school district that you want to put them in, so that you can have access to opportunities and events and vacations and all that sort of thing. So I do think it has a monetary component. However, for me, success has almost nothing to do with material things. For example, I really don't care about material things for me personally. I don't spend a lot of money on myself. Now, what I do care about are experiences. So I play tennis. I played tennis in college. I was a teaching pro for a while. I have a very nice tennis racket. I think I paid about $250 for it. I have one of them, and I take really good care of it, and it'll last me for 10 years. But it's on the higher range of what you would pay for a tennis racket because it gives me all these experiences, okay? I buy nice cars that work. And by nice, I mean a real solid Toyota. And so just so you know, don't tell anyone, but I'm a multimillionaire at this point, and we have two cars, and one is a Toyota Highlander we bought a year old, and the other is a Toyota 4Runner that we bought a year old. And I like to buy them a year old. COVID made this a little bit weird, but historically, you lose most of the value of a car immediately when you drive it off the lot. So I am not interested in buying new cars, frankly, because I know as soon as I drive them off the lot, all of a sudden, boom, it's crashed in value. And I don't like that. I like someone else to have the experience of that car crashing in value right after they buy it. I like to have a car that maintains its value. And I also go for Toyotas. And again, I'm not sponsored by Toyota at all. But I like Toyotas because they have good safety records. They last a long time. And what's so interesting is that is the mindset of most millionaires in the United States. As I mentioned, Dave Ramsey's done these studies. I've done them myself. I have one study in particular of 1,000 people, and I asked them how much money they spent on their last car. It's about $40,000 for those people at $11 million in net worth. They're spending $40,000 for a car. That's a solid Toyota. It's not a Lamborghini. It's not a brand new Mercedes. It's probably not a brand new BMW. I don't know who's buying those, but I'll tell you this. It's not most millionaires. It's not most self-made millionaires. Deal Hunter says buying more assets to help others. Yeah, that's a great motivation. I'm in it to give my children a better life. I'm in it to help as many people as I can. And I'm in it to have as many good experiences as I can. I'm not focused on material stuff. And so what I found in our studies is that people with a poor mindset, they are very much focused on buying material items. Now, these material items are not assets for the most part. They go like this in value. So a car, when you buy a car, it does this. It depreciates. It's not worth as much. When you buy a house, historically, over time, it does this. So that I would consider more of an asset. When you buy investments, at least throughout all of modern history, they go up in value for the most part. Like for example, the U.S. stock market has returned over 10% a year on average for the last 100 years, 100 plus years. So I would consider those assets, because really what you want to do, what I think rich is, it's owning your time. That, to me, that's the definition of success. So what is your definition of financial success? You got to think about it. If it is buying more stuff, I just want you to challenge that a little bit, because that stuff will not make you happy. And if you're buying depreciating things that are depreciating in value, liabilities, it's not going to make you happier over the long term. But what will make you miserable is a bunch of credit card debt. So watch out for that. Okay, next question. Are there certain personality traits that make people good at handling money? So the answer to this is, sadly, yes. So sadly, because if you don't have the personality traits, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for you. So there's one personality trait that has been associated, well, there's several, but let me just give you one that's strictly personality. It's called conscientiousness. The higher you are in conscientiousness, the more money you're going to make, the wealthier you're going to get, the more success you're going to have in every area of your life. What is conscientiousness? Well, I'll tell you what, it's what I'm trying to instill in my children. It's being conscientious. It's being on time and caring about that. It's you have schoolwork in front of you. Get it done, okay? And do a good job when you do it. Conscientiousness, thinking about the future, not just living in the moment. So these are things that hopefully your parents taught you and have instilled in you. And if this doesn't come naturally for you, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to work a little harder at it. Some people who are, if you're conscientious, you have what's really, really important in terms of becoming wealthy, and that is a future orientation, or at least you're able to access a future orientation. Now, this is terrible what I'm about to share with you, and it was very alarming to me. But they did studies on people who do meditation. Okay, now, first of all, I'm a huge fan of mindfulness meditation, where you sit down in the moment, you try to get in touch with the present, you try not to think about the future. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? You try not to think about the future. You try not to think about the past. You just embrace the moment. You embrace the moment. Okay, now this happens to be really good for your health. It's good for your anxiety. It's good for your depression, all that. It's actually terrible for your finances. And I hate to say it, but the people who spend the most time meditating they invest less for the future. And so anyway, I'm not against meditation. I'm just pointing out that the whole idea of meditation is to not worry about the future, right? Well, if you don't worry about the future, you're going to be broke in the future. That's the bottom line. So I always say automate before you meditate. So go ahead, have that future fund, your financial freedom fund, automate money from your checking account every month, pop it over into there, and then you're great. Sarah says, Courtney Love mentioned your book, and that's why you bought it. That's incredible. Courtney Love, like the Courtney Love. That is so sweet of her, and that's great. And I hope you find that book helpful. Sarah, coming out with a new book. I can't tell you what the title is, but it's the book I'm the most excited about. I can't wait to, it's due in May to the publisher. It'll be out in the fall. I'm super stoked about it. It's my 9th book, by the way, so I like to write books. Let's see here. I'm going for other questions. If you have any questions too, put them in the chat. I'm going over questions that I've gotten in the past that I thought it'd be good to review. Let's see. What can people do when they feel stressed about money? Can you share some tips? All right. So first of all, what I want to say is if you are stressed about money, you're the average person, okay? They keep doing a study. The American Psychological Association does a study every single year called Stress in America, and money tops the list, right? So think about this for a second. We are arguably the richest country in the world. We have one of the highest standards of living in the entire world, let alone throughout history. Our standard of living is incredibly high compared to that people have experienced in history. Yet, money is the biggest source of stress for like 7 to 8 out of 10 Americans. So if you're stressed about money, I get it. It makes sense. You're not alone. So first of all, you need to know that. Secondly, you're probably stressed about money because your behaviors are not in line with your ideals or your values or your goals. So that's why you're stressed, right? So, for example, you want to be debt-free, yet you have credit card debt. That will create a sense of stress. It's not entirely bad. I hope you're stressed a bit, or you will never pay off that credit card debt. So some of that stress is good, but it can tip into areas in which it's bad. And so the bottom line is, if you are stressed around money, you need to start focusing on what are your goals? What are your financial goals? You got to get really clear on what your financial goals. So let me just ask you this right now. I want you to think about it. What are your financial goals? What are your top 3 financial goals? Take a moment, think about it. Pause this video and write them down. What are your top 3 financial goals? Get as specific as possible. So, for example, don't say retirement. Say, I want to be financially free in 2030 and have $2 million invested that I can live off the, the dividends or the return. Get really specific about your financial goals. If you don't have financial goals and if you're not working towards them, you're going to be stressed. You're going to know on a deep psychological level that things aren't okay around money. Okay? Things aren't okay in your life around money. And so your body, your brain is going to be firing off alerts saying danger, danger. I know there's a threat. This is a very primitive part of your brain too that is designed to keep you alive. And it's going to give you a stress response. Things aren't okay. Things aren't okay. You need to do something. You need to do something. And what's so interesting about stress is that a lot of times it hits you when you're slowing down, right? So as you're starting to fall asleep. Have you ever had this experience? You're starting to fall asleep, you're tired, and then all of a sudden these things start popping in your head. All the things you didn't do, okay? All the things you should be worried about. This is one of the main causes of insomnia too, by the way. It is your brain, your survival brain, trying to warn you about danger. That's what's happening. And so if you have a lot of financial stress, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't impact your sleep. As you start to settle down, as your prefrontal cortex starts to relax, your emotional brain is going to start firing off, trying to get you to pay attention because you got to take care of something. So what I think you should do if you are financially stressed is sit back and make a list of all the things that are stressing you out around money. What your brain's trying to do is give you this alert that things are not okay. And I think it'll really help calm your brain down a little bit if you can take a moment to write down what all those things are. Think about it for a second. Would this very wise survival part of your brain need to be screaming at you all the time if it knew that you were aware of the threats? What typically happens is your stress will start to calm down. So now you have this list. And when you look at it, it is stressful, right? Because it's all these things that you're not taking care of. Perhaps you don't know how to take care of. That's when you might need to then go ask for some help. Ask for help. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I did a study where we found that the most successful people in the study asked for help more often. Isn't that amazing? And when I say most successful, I'm talking like mega rich people. They were more likely to ask for help than people who were middle class and lower. Isn't that amazing? It was surprising to me because I thought the opposite would be true, because people who have less money, in my mind, they need more help. They're actually more reluctant to ask for help. So, act like a rich person and ask for help. So you've got a list of all the things that are stressing you out around money, and take that list to a financial expert. Sit down with a CPA, sit down with a certified financial planner, sit down with a financial coach, and have somebody help give you a roadmap and create a roadmap for you on how to get where you want to get, how to reduce that stress, how to take care of what is out of sync in your relationship with money. So that's what I would do. The thing you want to do is avoid thinking about it, and that's the absolute worst thing to do, because those problems are just going to get bigger and they're going to get tougher as time goes. Okay, so next question here. Why is it important for people to know themselves when it comes to money? Oh my goodness. All right, so if you've heard me talk, I'm talking about insight constantly being so important. And if you don't know your history around money, you are bound to just repeat the same things you're getting. And it totally makes sense, right? Think about it. If you don't know your history around relationships, and you're not paying attention, and you have a failed relationship, you're gonna get into another one, and you're gonna do all the same stuff that led to at least your part in why that relationship failed, right? I mean, you have to learn from it. We're so much better at learning from our failed relationships than we are at learning from our bad financial experiences. And there's several reasons for this. One of the most important reasons for it is because we don't talk about money. Nobody talks about money. We all talk about our relationships, right? We all complain about our boyfriends and our girlfriends to our friends and our family, etc. And your boyfriend, girlfriend gets to complain to you about you. So you have all these opportunities to think about why you do what you do around money, ways you mess up around money. We don't have those same opportunities when it comes to money. We don't. We have it in all these other areas, but we're ashamed. We don't talk about money. We're stressed about money. So we don't have as many opportunities. So I'd encourage you to think about your own psychology around money. Think about how you got the way you got. So you're engaging in certain behaviors around money. Maybe you're not saving. Let's say you're not saving money for retirement. You're not investing. Why? Why are you not investing money? Think about it. Think about it. Chances are it was not modeled for you. If you grew up in a lower income environment, perhaps you didn't know anyone investing. And even worse than that, maybe you heard horror stories about people who invested and lost all their money. And I'd encourage you to dig a little bit deeper into those stories. I hear this all the time on social media. I don't invest in my 401k. I lost all my money in my 401k. You lost all your money in your 401k? What are you talking about? I don't know anyone who's lost all their money in their 401k. Are you trading in there? Or did you put all your money in one stock or something? That's not how wealthy people invest. That is not investing at all. That's called speculation. And every financial expert on the planet would tell you not to do that. There is no reason why you should lose all your money investing. As I mentioned, the average return of the US stock market for over 100 years has been over 10% a year. So if you're not getting close to that, you are the one screwing yourself up around investing, because that's people buying, like, for example, the S&P 500 index and not doing anything else. That's what they've been getting. So thinking, you got to know yourself. You got to know yourself. You got to dig in there. So whatever financial habits or behaviors you have that aren't working for you, dig into what those are, get specific about what those are, and then do some psychoanalysis and try to figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Deal Hunter says, great question. How do you lose all your money in your 401k? It's such a good question, right? And so what I know, and I hear that a lot too, by the way. I hear people saying, oh, I invested and I lost all my money. When I do a deeper dive into it, they were not investing. That is not what they were doing at all. There's a big difference between investing and trading. Like, oh my goodness, do not trade. Do not be a stock trader unless people are paying you to trade stocks, because they've done studies on day trading. 97% of the people who are in their accounts trading, boom, 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 97% of them lose money. At the end of the year, they lost money. 3% made money. Now get this. So that's 3 out of 100. Let's look at these 3 people. 2 of them only made minimum wage. Okay, so they made money, but it's minimum wage. Only 1 made more money than that. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, that's me. I'm going to be that one. No, you're not. That's just random error. You would expect that would be random error. And so is that person making them 2 years in a row? Probably not. And so that's just an example of, you got to know how you think about money. You got to know how your approach to investing, because if you're doing it wrong, you're going to lose your money. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just keep going through my list here. Let's see here. It's kind of a strange one. How can people be friends with their money? I don't really know what that means. Does where you come from affect how you think about money? Yeah, I've talked about that in this video already. It absolutely does. Where you come from has everything to do with your financial outcomes. And so I'll talk about this too right now, because this is a real important, rich mindset. And you got to have this mindset. And if you don't have it, go get it. Work hard every day to get this mindset. We've done studies on ultra wealthy people and compared them to people who didn't have as much money, not doing as well in every area of their life. And one of the key things that separates these 2 groups, statistically significant, if you will, for all you nerds out there like me, locus of control. Locus of control. That's a fancy psychology word for location of control. So, who's in control of your life? Who's in control of your life? Is it you? Or is it external factors? Another way to look at it, you're getting certain outcomes in your life. You're getting a grade on a test. Here's a great example. You got a grade on your test. Let's say you got a D on your test. Ugh. Why did you get a D on your test? Now, if you immediately go to the fact that you had a crappy teacher, the teacher didn't like you, the school is not preparing you well enough, that is an external locus of control. You are attributing the outcomes in your life to things outside of yourself. Now, it's tempting to do that because you immediately feel better about yourself, don't you? You know, you failed at a test. Well, it's not because I'm dumb. It's not because I didn't work hard enough. I feel fine. It's because of that nasty teacher who's got it out for me. I get it. It makes you feel better in the short term, but is a dangerous, terrible poverty mindset. And when I say poverty mindset, I mean it will keep you poor. It will keep you broke. It will keep you struggling financially forever, this mindset. You will go nowhere with this mindset. And so even if you're right, even if that teacher is a jerk, try to look at what you could do differently. Even this, the teacher doesn't like me. An internal locus control would be, why does that teacher not like me? Is it because I cussed at them? Is it because I don't show up to class? Is it because I come in late? Is it because I'm not paying attention when they're talking? There's a reason why that teacher doesn't like you, is my guess. I worked in schools for like 20 years. There's always a reason, by the way. There's always a reason. Look for the reason. You know, you're having a struggle in your relationship with your spouse or partner. Of course it's their fault, right? Look at you. You're a good person. If they just understood, everything would be fine. That is a terrible way to look at your relationship. At the very least, you should be looking at what is my 50% of the issue here. Because that's the part you can change, and it will change your relationship. Any relationship that you're having a struggle with, be looking at what is your role, and including your relationship with money. So let's see here. Yeah, so that internal locus of control. Always be looking for, in other words, to blame yourself. Be gentle, be nice, don't be mean about it. But always be looking for, what did I do wrong? What could I do differently? Let's say you find yourself in a bad relationship, and this person they're a terrible human being, right, by the way. So let's put all the blame on them. They are abusive. You know, you don't deserve to be abused. There's no excuse for it. If that person lays a hand on you, that behavior is 100% their fault. 100% their fault. What I would encourage you to do, though, is to just at least entertain the concept that perhaps there were some red flags in the relationship that you may have ignored early on. Is there perhaps, did people warn you? Did you get a sense that this person was a bit too jealous? You know, I mean, if you're not able to look at those red flags that perhaps you missed, I worry about you finding yourself in that exact same situation again. That's what I worry about. So whether it's your financial life, whether it's an investing mistake, whether it's you lost a house, you're going to have all these reasons to blame the rest of the world, and a lot of good reasons. And you can look around and find reasons to support you. I'm just going to suggest to you that if you can just find some reason to blame yourself, at least for a little bit of it. If you don't, you're going to keep finding yourself in the exact same mess over and over again because, unfortunately or fortunately, we have a lot of power to shape our reality and shape our experiences. So exercise that power. You have it, and put it to good use, okay? So let me see what that was. Okay, let's see. Next question here. And again, let me put some questions in the chat if you have them. If you're not here for us live right now, I can address these in a later video, or I'll take notes like I did here and address them any way I can here. Can you talk about how couples can agree on what to do with their money? Oh, that's a great question. So if you are not on the same page with your partner, your spouse around money, welcome to the club. Money is the number one thing that people fight about, especially in the first few years of marriage. It's the number one cause of divorce in the first 3 years of marriage. It is one of the top things that people fight about. And a lot of times we sort of do it to ourselves, right? So we're attracted to people quite often who do money differently than we do. Now, if you and your partner, your future partner, if you guys do everything the same way around money, you are very lucky. You're also very weird. Okay, that does not happen very often. What is more common is that we're not on the same page. We're not on the same page. I'm a saver. She's more inclined to spend, or vice versa. And I personally think that on some sort of spiritual level, if you will, some sort of vibe that's unconscious, we are attracted to people who sort of balance us out a bit. All right, so I may be attracted to my wife because she likes to enjoy life a little bit more than I do. And here I am, I'm anxious around money, and I see her being more willing to spend for a good time, for a nice dinner, for example, or a couch, right? Meanwhile, I'm fine with lawn chairs, right? So in going the other direction, she may be attracted to me because she doesn't feel like she's put a lot of thought and time and effort into saving for the future. And so she sees me as the one with the spreadsheets, right? And I'm looking, and she's attracted to that a little bit because she knows that that's part of the deal, right? Part of the deal is enjoying the moment. And she might even love that part about herself. And I certainly love it about her. I'm attracted to it. And she might be attracted to the part of me that is thinking about the future and planning for the future and saving and investing for the future. And so I think quite often we are attracted to people when it comes to money who are a little bit different than us. And I think that part of it is perhaps the universe trying to seek balance. And so that's the way I would look at it. What you don't want to do is spend your entire relationship pounding each other over the head, metaphorically, where I'm trying to convince her to look at money the way I look at it. That's not a great way. I mean, all successful relationships do require negotiation. They do. You got to figure out a solution here. But I think it really does help for you to understand your partner and where they're coming from. And so what I encourage people to do is to talk about money in a way that perhaps they never had. So if you're dating somebody, at some point there's going to be a date where you're like trying to figure out, so do you want to have kids someday? Or, what are your plans for the future? Where do you want to live? Is this where you want to live your entire life because you met them in some area? We never do that with money. So I encourage couples to, before they start negotiating these things they're fighting about, go back and have that conversation that you should have had, on date number 6 or 3 or whatever, where you ask each other, well, like, what are your financial goals? What are your financial fears? Like, where do you want to see yourself? When do you want to retire? And go a little bit deeper. Like, what was it like for you growing up around money? What are your top financial goals? Have this conversation. So many of us don't do it. And money is the number one reason that couples are getting divorced, especially early on. So try to have that conversation and look at your differences as a benefit. And it's certainly true that marriage, and I'll talk about marriage because that's that's how they describe it in all the studies. People who are married have significantly higher net worth than people who are single. So on a strict financial basis, your financial planner strongly recommends that you get married. Now, I know there's more to it than that, but I'm just saying on a strictly financial point of view, getting married seems to help people out, and they tend to have better thoughts around money, so better money scripts. They really do. And part of it is because they're challenging each other, right? They're challenging each other. If I'm in a close relationship with someone and they see how I'm spending my money, they might say something like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to spend all your money right now on that? How much are you investing for the future?" And I might be like going, "Well, geez, nothing." Aha. Well, so now just somebody pointing that out to me, I may not have thought about it. Or, vice versa. Someone's like, "Wait a second, you save all your money? You have no joy in your life?" Well, that doesn't sound very good either. And so having somebody who's aware of what you're doing automatically starts to modify your behavior. And so that's why people who are in committed relationships who are married tend to have healthier beliefs around money. They have way more net worth in general. So all those fights about money with your partner, spouse, they can actually be really, really good for you as long as you have the right mindset around it. The right mindset, not trying to convince the other person that they're wrong. Try to think about how their input, the truth in their input, so that you can revise how you're approaching money, because quite often we're seeking out that balance. Um, okay, so, oh, what do I do when somebody asks to borrow money? Okay, all right. Now do get this one a lot, and you just got to be careful about loaning people money for several reasons. Now, number one, I know that you're a good person. I know you want to help out people who are close to you, the people you love. Of course, you're a good person. Of course, you want to help out. Just be careful about loaning money. And there's several reasons for this. Actually, I had a college professor who told me that if you ever want to ditch a friend, okay, so you've got a friend and you're finding them annoying, if you ever want to ditch them, just loan them some money. He's like, it might cost you 20 bucks, might cost you 50 bucks, but then you won't have to worry about that friend anymore. And what he was getting at was that friend will then start to avoid you because they're not going to pay you back. And I think he was a psychology professor too, and he was really striking on this notion that if somebody's asking to borrow money from you, there's a good chance they're not in great financial shape, right? And if they're not in great financial shape, don't expect to get that money back. Don't expect to get it back. And so I would say you probably shouldn't loan people money. Pretty much ever. There could be some circumstances. We could have a debate. Let's have a discussion about it offline around whether or not you should, loan this person money. But there's a really good chance they're not going to pay you back. So I would encourage you to look at it as a gift. So don't expect it back. And if you expect it back, just understand this. There's a good chance that it will hurt your relationship. That's the bottom line. You loan money, you expect it back. There's a good chance that may no longer be a safe or a friendly or a desirable relationship for you because there's a good chance they won't pay it back. And it also changes the nature of the relationship. So all of a sudden, this person owes you money, so that means you're a lender. That means they're a borrower. I don't know. That's different roles. You guys were just friends, and now you're a lender and a borrower. So that means you're going to put them on a payment plan. You're going to, every time you see them, you're going to be like, hey, when are you going to pay me back? It just really gets awkward. So if you're going to be helping people with money, try to look at it as a gift. And if you don't like that idea, then maybe you shouldn't do it. Blame your financial planner. Oh, I'd love to help you out, but my financial planner won't let me do it. And also you got to ask yourself why, what's going on here? Is this a one-time deal? You'll find out really quickly if it is, if you loan somebody money, because they might come back to you and ask for more. But just pay attention to it, because sometimes us loaning people money may be harmful. Like, what are they doing with the money? Here's also another great way to think about it. So if you have a friend come to you and say, oh my gosh, I can't pay this month's rent, but I'm going to get paid in 3 weeks. Could you just loan me a couple $100? So now, you do not loan them $200 unless you are 100% okay with what I'm about to say next. So they borrow $200. They're supposedly going to pay you back in 3 weeks. The very next day, you see them, and you look down, and they have this brand new pair of shoes. Okay? When you're looking at those shoes, and you say, "Hey, oh, those are nice shoes," and your friend says, "Oh yeah, I just got them yesterday, at the mall." Unless you're 100% okay with that, so this person just asked you to borrow money, you loan them a couple $100 for their rent. The next day you see them with these shoes, brand new shoes. If you are going to be somewhat resentful, if you're going to have feelings about that, that means you have loaned this money with a bunch of strings attached, which of course you did, and I don't blame you. That's the kind of stuff that can destroy relationships, because first of all, we can already sort of guess this person isn't great with money. That's why they're asking to borrow money from you. And so you need to be okay with them mishandling it, spending it in a way you're not okay with before you give it to them. Otherwise, it can lead to resentment and destroy the relationship. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Let's see here. Okay. Can you share some stories about people who do money well and people who don't do money well? Well, we know a lot of people who don't do money well. Let me think about... Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story about one of the richest people I know. So this person's, approximately a billionaire, plus or minus 100 million here or there. Super, super wealthy, though. And this person immigrated to the United States when they were, I think it was second grade. They did not speak the language at all. They failed second grade because they couldn't speak the language. Had no money. Like their single mom spent every last dime she could get a hold of to get her 2 kids to America. Don't speak the language, having to deal with, that and racism, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was not easy. This person, though, got their first job when they were in high school, like around age 16, working in a burger joint, flipping burgers. And I'm just when I think about it, I'm wondering what all the other 16-year-olds were thinking about who were working in that restaurant. What this kid was thinking about was, I'm going to own this restaurant someday. This is such an incredible story. And so very quickly, though, he learned that he's never going to be able to own this restaurant. This chain, never going to be able to get one of these franchises if he continues to work at this franchise. He realized, I got to find a trade so I can make more money. So this person became a mechanic, realized that was a pretty good trade, making 50, 60 bucks an hour. Way better than, 15 bucks an hour, 12 bucks an hour, minimum wage. And what this person did that for about 7 years. So became a mechanic. Now remember, the goal was to go back and buy that restaurant. Became a mechanic, 7 years, saved 95% of his income. 95%. Could you imagine doing that? I'm like, well, where'd you get clothes? Oh, I bought them at secondhand stores. Well, did you ever go out to eat? No, not once in 7 years. What? Well, what'd you eat? I ate ramen noodles. For 7 years? Yeah, pretty much. Where'd you stay? Oh, I just slept on my mom's couch. Okay. 5% of his income went to paying his mom. He did not spend any money for 7 years, saved it all up, bought a franchise, now owns hundreds of them. That's how you do very well around money. You got to have a saving mindset. You got to be willing to sacrifice for the future. Now, most people aren't willing to do this, by the way. Most people are absolutely not willing to do what this person did. And by the way, I don't blame you, right? But if you want to become wealthy, and if you're starting out at the bottom, that's what you're going to have to do. There is no get rich quick, folks. And the people who try to get rich quick lose money fast. Here's a poor mindset towards investing. We're talking about investing. We're talking about speculating. A poor mindset to investing goes like this. I've got $1,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this $1,000. I'm going to put it in an account. I'm going to start trading with it. And I'm going to get that up to $100,000. That's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to get it up to $10,000. That $1,000 is all going to be gone. Okay, that is a poor mindset towards investing. That's not what rich people do. That's not how people get rich. Don't believe what you see on social media. We always hear these stories of somebody who got struck by lightning. Okay, yeah, right. Somebody who won the lottery. That's no approach to getting wealthy. I think we can agree, right? We can agree on that. That's not how people get rich. And by the way, no wealthy person alive today would ever do that with their money, because they didn't get wealthy that way, and that money's too precious to them. I just told you that most multimillionaires are frugal. They're kind of cheap, right? There's no way they're going to be gambling with their money like that. No way. By the way, I just heard too that you've seen professional gamblers. Well, when you really follow their story, these people we see in like world poker tournaments and all that, they all end up broke. You understand that, right? Because they're gamblers, and that's what happens. You lose all your money eventually. The house always wins. So what rich people do is they focus on making more money so that they can invest more money. And when I say invest, they're not speculating, they're not trading, they're not doing any of that garbage. No. That money's too precious to them. They work too hard for it. That is their financial freedom fund. That's what they want to do with it. So, yes. So that success mindset, how do people do money right? It's what percentage of your income are you saving and investing? I'm going to ask you that right now. As we're talking here, as we're chatting, as we're thinking about money, what percentage of your income right now are you saving and investing? Take a moment, do the math, think about it. Most financial experts say should do 10%. Now I think, and what I did during my life, most of my life, once I started making money, let me put it that way, 30% of my income was my target. I wanted to save 30% of my income. Now you're saying, whoa, 30%? I can't afford that. Well, luckily for me, I started doing that when I got my very first job. So I went from having no money to all of a sudden making money, and I felt rich, people. I felt like, whoa, I finally made it. So it was actually pretty easy for me to do that. So the earlier you can do it, the better. That's why I post content here. That's why I post it on TikTok, on Instagram, is because I'm trying to catch young people to try to give them this mindset. Because the younger you are, the easier it is. Oh my gosh, it's so easy when you're young. The amount of money you need to invest is so small compared to if you start in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. So it's not too late if you haven't done it, but try to get your kids, your grandkids, any child you know to try to invest early. At least have this mindset. Every dollar I make, I'm going to save and invest a percentage of it. So I'll end it here by wanting you to think about and making a commitment right now. Make a commitment to all of us, okay? You don't have to write it in the chat, but that you are going to save and invest a percentage of your income. Now, I don't care if it's 1%. Let's say it's 1%. You're not investing at all. Times are tight. I want you to make a commitment right here, right now. I feel like I'm a preacher having an altar call right now. I want you to make a commitment right now that you are going to save and invest 1% of your income starting now. Now, you might say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. These are all great questions because you're going to need to learn to do it because you just promised me that you were going to start saving and investing 1% of your income. You get $1, that's 1 penny that you are going to start setting aside for your financial freedom so that you can change your financial trajectory, so that you can change your family's whole financial experience in the world. It's up to you. Here and now, you're being called to do this. Start saving and investing a percentage of your income. Thank you for being here. I love you. I will keep doing more of these if you like it. Stay in touch. Ask me any questions in the chat that you might have, and I'll catch you next time.